I mean,
see
this
your
is,
pond back there. I know there's lots of flooding up in this area.
This is all floodplain. Mostly it floods upriver. The dike would have to break or be topped for it to happen. And so I suppose it's that was my nightmare. I'll never live in this house. Then I'll move in, live here for a month, and then it'll be flooded. So this is my worst. So let's hope that doesn't happen. A lot of people will suffer if it does, not just me. But yeah, I'm a client of FEMA now. Take a break.
Reason for the raid, and they raided several homes and cars and the restaurant and arrested 70 people. But all these people had forged documents made wearing their El Mirador attire. And so they traced it to that restaurant. But I just read a email that this immigration attorney is working on a letter writing campaign and support for these people. He had been to jail and visited two 20-year-old women in their 20s who had small children at home, and they came when they were 10 years old.
Ok.
Se llama Desolation.
Ok, dice Salmo del inmigrante a quemarropa. Al otro lado del río Grande, nosotros trabajamos en los campos del tío Sam, sin descanso y tristemente recordando a nuestro México lindo y querido. En las trailas que vivimos, cuelgan nuestras guitarras, acordeones y gabanes. Allí los patrones nos piden que les toquemos al son que ellos quieren. Nos exigen que solo hablemos inglés. Nuestros opresores nos llevan a la Casa Blanca cada 5 de mayo. Como entretenimiento para sus fiestas, salimos en sus TV shows, en sus medios de información y nos piden que cantemos al son del mariachi. Pero, ¿cómo cantar nuestra música en un país que nos oprime? Lejos de nuestra tierra, nuestra familia y nuestra cultura. Ay, Dios nuestro, que creaste la tierra del sol, si yo llegara a cambiar tus tortillas, pozole, tamales y enchiladas por el hot dog, arráncame la vida, pues no quisiera vivir. Y si de ti, mi Dios, que has bronceado nuestras pieles y nos has creado del maíz, renegara algún día, que me agarre y me deporte la migra. Madre y Padre Dios, acuérdate de estos capitalistas que quieren hacer del maíz etanol para sus coches, en vez de alimentar a miles que mueren a diario por el hambre. Capitalismo, hijo, o mejor dicho, hijo de la globalización, has de reventar porque todos los globos se revientan. Dichosos quienes preparan su alfiler y empiezan a pinchar a la globalización que nos oprime.
Correcto.
Emilio Benítez.
¿Cuándo escribió esto?
Este fue un trabajo que hice en el seminario. Cuando estábamos en el seminario y nos pidieron hacer un trabajo de la Biblia en el contexto de nuestra historia.
Okay, ¿con Eliseo o otro profesor?
No, fue con otro profesor era afroamericano y me parece que venía de Haití. Muy bueno el profesor David, recuerdo su nombre.
¿Qué?
Epazote.
Epazote. ¿Para qué?
Este se usa por lo regular, hay un platillo que se llama chilaquiles, que es de tortillas con la salsa y se le pone y también a los frijoles negros también se le pone este tipo de hierba.
A las quesadillas.
Okay.
A los michotes.
A los michotes también hay otro que se llama michote. Es bueno, se hace con una hoja como hoja de maguey. O se puede usar con un papel aluminio. Entonces se le pone el pollo, se le pone trocitos de tocino, una salsa roja, nopales.
There are big marinas along it, so that the people who go to big sailboats, maybe would come up from Seattle that way and then they would go. Instead of going all the way out of the all those things are closed. And over there on tribal land, this is called Shelter Bay. It's
Where is Swinomish
where we got gas yesterday.
Village?
That's Swinomish Village.
Uh,
It's interesting no one calls it that, but when I'm Facebook friends with these farmers who lease our stuff, and when they're out on their tractors and they're doing their Facebook thing from a mobile, it's picking up the nearest tower. Yeah.
What a beautiful house.
It's beautiful. We'll go in. Probably about 1906 or 1907, and this is my great-grandfather Andrew Johnson and Britta Lisa Anderson Johnson. Their oldest daughter was Anna Johnson, and then Carl Johnson, and then Oscar, and that was my grandfather, and then Arthur. So Anna lived, they say that she had a boyfriend and they said, you can't get married. That's what my mother says. But other aunts say that's not true. She had such bad goiter. She was kind of disfigured, and so and she was a little odd, so how could she ever have had a boyfriend, was what they would say. Carl died of tuberculosis. My grandfather, when he was about 12, had appendicitis, which led to septicemia, so he had to be in the hospital, and that weakened him. So I've noticed a pattern of university-educated families is you're descended from the one who got sick and couldn't work on the farm. Other people said, yeah, that's the story of my grandfather. So Arthur was the one then who was left to farm all his life and also never married. So only my grandfather went to high school, went to university, got married and had children. Everybody else was single, left school at the 8th grade, or died. And when Art died, then my mother and her sisters inherited everything. And that's how this place, which was central to us always, and to my mother and her sisters who always came up here to visit their grandparents. But because there were no other heirs, that's how it came to my part of the family. And there was a lot of repair work to do starting in about 1991, 92 when it came into this part of the family. And so these are just various civic events, the local brass band. I think this is a seed growers meeting. Here this is probably at the Augustana Lutheran Church, everybody in their direct, in their clothing. And this might be sort of a church picnic outing. It looks like it might be on Pleasant Ridge, which is where the old Swedish church was. It's just kind of slowly getting outfitted for guests. Every time more people come, we discover we need more sheets or whatever. So this is sort of my grandfather's education wall, and then these are all family photos and confirmation photos. And these are So, most of the furniture was just, well, we don't have all the bed stands, so I'm just looking at them fixed, but, stuff like this. Tree farm, so they just pulled out all the trees in this section. So I think maybe this summer they'll go back to a row crop to kind of let the ground rest. We bought this for our parents. It wasn't part of the house. We were Lutheran. They probably had no kind of photograph. You had to sit quiet here. This is a freezing cold, dark house of somber people. Very somber people.
Very modern bathroom.
Well, that's because, see, there were no bathrooms here. We'll have to clean this, I see. There were closets, but when the house had to get lifted up and put onto a foundation to start with, because there wasn't one. And then all these walls were pretty much just like plywood with newspaper over them.
Yeah.
So they had to put, upgrade the wiring and put in drywall. And then these bathrooms, there was a bathroom created on each side between the rooms where the old closets used to be. So that, otherwise you had to go to the end of the hallway here. This poem is called Handing My Great Uncle's List Around the Rexville. The Rexville is a grocery store where farmers have coffee. Monday, seeded spinach, cultivated and hoed beets. Tuesday, Wednesday, hoed beets. Thursday, reseeded spinach. Friday, beets. Saturday, hauled manure and plowed small lot where manure pile is. Sunday, went to church. It must have been May, says Alan, scanning the scrap of writing wedged for near a century behind a dresser drawer. The beets are up to here when the spinach goes in. Manure, well, when you've got animals, that's year-round. Alan comes for coffee after he feeds the cows. Manure is this month's only crop, snow cooling the Ford F-250s parked out front. Between seasons of great labor, this short parentheses, when ditch commissioners, grunts, and visionaries rest their limbs a little longer by the coffee urn. Football, generators, weather, what my old uncles must have mulled with their own fellows, feet up for these few fallow weeks. Geese feast on wheat. The big implements slumber in barns. When mechanics wake them with a wrench, the gray rest ends. That's how it is here, grumbles my brother. Winter goes on and on and on. And one day you wake up and you're already behind.
Writer and poet Anne Basye was raised in Sacramento, California. She attended school in Walla Walla and lived in Chicago for over 20 years. She has traveled the world. She is the author of Sustaining Simplicity, a journal. A student of intentional living, she can tell you how to reuse your vacuum bags and has never owned a microwave. Her travels include Central America and Africa. She holds an MFA in poetry from Northwestern University and has written about writers and theologians in Lutheran Magazine. An accomplished pianist, she is also an accredited house blesser. She has blessed our house. Her spiritual journey has brought her to Mount Vernon, where her grandparents settled in the early part of the 20th century. She has always paid attention to her Swedish ancestry, and that interest informs this story along with her participation in the Hispanic immigrant community. I know her poems and her journey as a writer. She's a student of the Spanish language. Having said that, I know Anne as a citizen of Holden Village, an ecumenical Lutheran retreat center in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. Her spirit journey includes service work to Holden Village in maintaining the community for others. She has participated annually during Abriendo Caminos Week in the village and walks as a part of the immigrant community in Sacramento, Yakima, and Mount Vernon, as well as at Holden Village.